I'd like to welcome Jed to the podcast. I'm super excited. He's from Peer Mountain. The first question I want to ask you, Jed, is who are you and where are you from?
Hi, Connor. Thanks for having me on today.
Fantastic.
I'm Jed Grant. I am a fintech professional with more than 25 years experience in finance, technology, and security. I've worked at companies and institutions like NATO, Computer Center, and others, but always with a focus on tech and finance. And I grew up in California, but I am a European, and I live in Europe for the last 20 years as well.
Okay.
So.
Okay. What was your first experience with blockchain or crypto?
That was Bitcoin. When Bitcoin was the only thing there was. So when the white paper came out and when the first release was there, I actually downloaded it and ran it. And at that time, it was the whole chain was very small. It could download in an evening onto my computer, and it was still possible to mine on a reasonable server. I think Bitcoin was 16 cents on Mt. Gox at the time when I did that.
Yeah, no, I first bought Bitcoin at $99 on Gox as well, but it's good. So what's Peer Mountain all about?
Peer Mountain is about doing to information what Bitcoin does to money, to value. Okay. So Peer Mountain is about allowing you to own all of your information, not just your identity, but that includes other information that's related to you, like certificates and your important documents. What basically, if you would imagine your file cabinet of all your personal stuff that you need to go about business in a paper type world, Peer Mountain's about digitizing that and giving you the ownership of it and allowing you to share that with third parties that you choose to trust. It's really about leveraging the blockchain as the engine of trust and creating an automated, trustless notary, basically, between you and any service provider that you want to interact with.
Okay, so almost like Civic, or no?
Well, Civic is an identity solution, and Peer Mountain will work with Civic, will work with Sovereign, and these other solutions. You can use that identity, but it's more like an encrypted workflow on chain. If you've ever used DocuSign, you can imagine how DocuSign works, but that's really clunky and centralized. And Peer Mountain is a decentralized environment for trust, the way DocuSign creates trust. So you can take your identity information and other information, and you can share it with a service provider, and it can be validated by third-party trust providers, we call them, so they vouch for it. So for example, if you were to rent a car using Peer Mountain, you would decide to share with the car rental company things like the fact that you have a valid driver's license. You might not have to share the whole driver's license with them, but it depends on the company. They may say, we want to see a picture of your driver's license, but they could also accept a zero knowledge proof that says you have a valid Class B driver's license, and that's all they need to know. And you might share with them your residence information, your insurance information, that kind of stuff. And then they could give you the access to the car on the spot. So the way that would actually work is Peer Mountain is mobile driven. So the main consumer client is mobile, designed to be used on your phone. You would just scan a QR code on the window of the car. You would swipe in that information, driver's license, insurance, etc. You take a selfie. You take a video of the car that you're about to get into. All of that is validated by the trust provider role, which is another peer in the network. You can be one, two, or all three of those roles. So the trust provider would say that's a good driver's license. The car is the one we expect it to be. It's got the right license plate, color, etc. All that checks out. And then the car rental company says, okay, this service can be delivered because the consumer, you have chosen to share everything that we needed to give you the car. And then they can give you the key directly into your phone as a NFC key. You get in with keyless entry and you drive away. So you don't need to deal with paperwork and people in little huts at a car rental place anymore.
Okay, that sounds efficient.
Yeah.
Where'd you get the initial idea from?
The idea is trust. I mean, I've been thinking about it since before blockchain was around, actually, how to actually have a system where I control my data, where I own all of my information, and where I can then establish trust with another party and conduct business as if we were in the same room on a handshake. And how to do that digitally. And that's a problem I've been thinking about since around 2006, 2005, and figuring out how to do it. Originally, when there was no blockchain on the scene, I designed a system that did it using a witness type protocol. So a third, the person that you and I most have the most common level of trust in would digitally sign our transactions.
Okay.
But blockchain eliminates the need for that witness or third party there. It becomes the notary.
So is it a front end solution or back end? How is it? How would it work?
Peer Mountain is an end-to-end solution. It's actually a chain agnostic protocol. So it's the peer chain protocol is what powers it. And it's a layer 2. So Peer Mountain needs underneath it a blockchain and a data store, a distributed like IPFS or storage or one of these data stores. And on the chain, we store all the hashes of all the information that you've exchanged and all the trust that's been established, but it's all just hashes. And off chain, we store all the encrypted objects that are referred to from the chain. So your driver's license, the proof, the certificate, zero knowledge proof of that, etc.
Okay.
And it can work because it's chain agnostic. It's deployed in instances. So Peer Mountain could run on a public chain. You could run it on a dedicated chain for, say, doing KYC across all different crypto exchanges. And that would be a pretty cool use case because then you could port your KYC from one exchange to the other. You wouldn't need to redo this process, and you wouldn't need to hold up a picture of you holding a piece of paper with the date and all that. All that would be gone. Okay. And you would basically be able to just create an account on a new crypto exchange just by porting in your KYC data that you've already done. So that could be done on a public chain, but you could also have like a semi-private chain deployed amongst a group of stakeholders, which would be jurisdictional. So Peer Mountain could be deployed in a country, like in Switzerland, for example, in the financial sector. Mm-hmm. You could deploy a chain that would be used by the different actors, the auditors, the banks, et cetera, that want to participate in that. And then that chain can be accessed as well by the same consumer. So you can actually move data objects from one instance, we call it, to another instance. And it's really that it's a layer 2 protocol that runs above the chain. It's not a native chain itself.
Okay.
And that's a big difference from like Civic and Sovereign, and those are dedicated chain solutions that are international by nature because they're running on a public chain.
Okay, that sounds good. What's been since you started Peer Mountain, which was in, if I'm not mistaken, 2015?
That's when I filed the first IP protection on the architecture. Yes.
Yeah. So what's been the biggest challenge that you've faced over the course of the last 3 years?
Fundraising this year. Fundraising in a crypto bear market is a challenge, I'll tell you that.
Sure.
So we've signed past the soft cap, but we're nowhere near the fundraising goal that we'd like to be at. Okay. Of course, if you look at the amount in ETH that we've signed up earlier in the year, that was a very nice number, but as we all know, ETH is worth a third of what it was in May. So as fast as we're raising, it was going down in value. Mm-hmm. That can be discouraging when you get another 300 ETH into the multi-sig, and the value in terms of euros and dollars is still the same.
That was your biggest challenge. So was that the biggest challenge because you couldn't get the investors in, or was it the biggest challenge because of also the lack of clarity on the regulatory side?
No, the regulatory side's not an issue for us. I mean, I know I'm participating in a lot of European level regulatory groups and things, so we're not worried about that. It's just getting investors in. So getting investors motivated and getting investors who are liquid. A lot of investors are not investors anymore because they're stuck in a bunch of worthless altcoins that they can't sell. So it's a challenge right now to raise.
Okay, so on that question, why did you choose to go down the token sale route?
It makes a lot of sense. If I had to start today, I wouldn't choose that route. I'd probably go for private funding and then do the token offering as an exchange offering or something like this, which is probably an easier way to do it in today's environment. But we set up all the legal at the beginning of this year and did all the necessary steps to do the token sale. And by the time we had all that done, it was kind of the track we were on. So it would be quite a lot of work to pivot away from that today.
Okay. So the PMT token is an ERC20?
Yes, PMTN.
PMTN, sorry.
It was PMT when we first started, but when we deployed the contract, it's a PMTN because someone made a token called Pump Me Token, and they made it PMT.
Okay, that's fair enough. How does it interact with the protocol itself? How does it interact with peer mounting the token?
So the PMTN is the means of payment on and across Peer Mountain instances, and it's payment for trust. So
Okay.
in the basic way that it works, the service provider role pays PMTN to the trust provider who creates the trust. So if I'm a service provider and I sell alcohol and I need a proof that the buyer is over 18, 21, whatever the age may be in that jurisdiction, I get that from a trust provider and I pay them a small amount of PMTN to give me that proof that they've verified that this individual is of age to buy alcohol. The other way PMTN are used is they can be staked by the trust provider. So if that trust provider tells me this guy's definitely over 18 and they stake, say $50 worth of PMTN on that certificate, if later on the authorities come around and say, hey, you sold alcohol to this person and he used a fake ID with that trust provider and he wasn't of age, that $50 insurance stake could be given to the service provider because they were given a bad certificate from the trust provider. So it allows, the staking does a couple things. It ties up the token and it will, as the ecosystem grows, it'll reduce the number of circulating tokens as more and more will be staked in this insurance. But it also provides a very, very important facet of competition in the ecosystem because very highly trustworthy trust providers can actually put a fairly big insurance on their certificates because they know that they're not going to pay out very often because they're right.
Okay.
So that encourages then the service provider to use them, obviously, because they have this big bond on their certificates, on their trust.
Okay. So if I was for example, a large corporation and I was interested in using Peer Mountain's technology, what questions do you usually get asked by them, or what questions should I be asking being that large corporation to want to use this type of technology?
The first thing they want to know is how does it integrate and how does it work with the mess that they already have.
Okay.
And the way it works is it's actually a new channel. So you can run a peer-mounted instance to deliver services in parallel to all the existing stuff that they've got in place. And it can integrate very light touch. So basically when that person in that rental car scenario scans that QR code and does all that stuff, they can integrate at a few touch points where they need to validate, this car in our database is that car and that kind of stuff. And then this person has now rented that car. So at the end of that process, when the thing's approved, they need to, trigger the creation of a normal contract record in their core system. But Peer Mountain can actually run in parallel. But that's the main concern that enterprises have is that. The second concern that they come with, and the integration's not, we've made it deliberately easy to integrate. The second concern they come with is, what's this token? How do I deal with that token? And the answer to that is real easy. I mean, they buy them. If they're a service provider, they buy a bunch of tokens, and then they can use the token to deploy a Peer Mountain instance and fuel their services. So they can then invite consumers to consume the service by using the token to pay for the trust. What we also have, and it's in the white paper, you'll see that we've proposed an OTC desk that will run.
Okay.
And that way, if a company says, I don't want to deal with the token at all, we just run the desk for them and they outsource it to us and we'll top up their wallet or sell any surplus and then give them an invoice or a credit in whatever fiat currency they're working in.
Okay. So in the instance so you have to have the token to use the platform essentially.
Right. Yeah. We're not selling the software. The software is paid for by the use of the token.
Okay. All right. Fantastic. So how can Peer Mountain be different from the other solutions that are going to pop up, and what's going to really be the standout point for Peer Mountain?
I think we're the first, or one of the first cross-blockchain protocols out there that's really a layer 2 protocol. So I think you can see that we have the potential to really power a massive amount of commerce across different chains. We can run on Ethereum, we can run on Neo, we can run on Hyperledger. And when you get into enterprise deployments, enterprises are picky and, they might say we're an IBM shop, we need to run it on Hyperledger. And that's important for us to be that layer above. So the whole logic is above, and it's an asynchronous messaging protocol that is above the chain, uses the chain as a record of, a permanent ledger of all the transactions, all the objects, and all the actions that were taken.
Okay. So if you were to go back to, so not this year, but if you were to go back, what would be some of the certain things that you would have done differently to what you've set up to today? And what challenges again were you gonna go through?
What I would have done differently is I
Yeah.
would have spent a lot less time getting everything in order legally and with in
Okay.
terms of compliance and whatnot, and I would have run a sloppy token sale in 2017.
Okay, that's fair enough. That's fair enough.
But we took the time to really set everything up and do it right.
Yeah.
And that cost us basically until March of this year before we could actually pull the trigger and begin accepting a single ETH.
Okay. So what's the current token sale model at the moment?
So we did a very small pre-order, kind of a friends and family round that was done in March, and then we held off until now. We started a private sale in June of this year when we signed with Token Market, and we're still in the private sale phase. We had tentatively scheduled to go into a public sale this month, but we postponed that. We don't have a date when we'll do the public sale. We'd like to do it as soon as possible, but it's based on market conditions, and the market is just completely frozen right now.
Okay. And who are some of the partners that are really working with you at the moment?
Well, we've announced a number of partnerships. You'll see that there's quite a bit out there. We're about to announce one with Rivets as well. We just signed a partnership with Rivets, and they provide a hardware SIM card and phone-based solution to make your wallet even more secure. And then we're working with a Swiss financial institution and a German institution on the actual deployment. They're interested in deploying the tech. We have interest from a couple other companies as well on the tech side. And so Peer Mountain has gotten the attention of some large corporates. Unfortunately, they're all under NDA. That's the first thing they make us do, and they don't want to be publicly associated with the token sale. But so we have quite a bit of industry partnership, Enterprise Ethereum Alliance, Syscoin, things like this. And Token Market, of course, on the token sale, Bancor on the liquidity side. So we have quite a number of things set up, and we're focused now on the private sale, on partnerships, and on building the tech. So one of the things we're going to try to do in the next several weeks is to get out a testable version of Peer Mountain that people can actually download onto their phones on Android, and they can actually see how it works pretty much on their phone.
So when you said test, so is it open to developers? Is it open source technology?
We will open source it. It is not open sourced at this time, but the Android SDK we intend to open source, and the enterprise attestation engine will be open sourced as well. So anybody can then implement that technology in their app or in their backend as they see fit.
And I can imagine a incentive model for the developers, or no?
Well, for the developers, the incentive for the mobile client is that they would be putting it into their app if they're a service provider, so a bank or a rental car company. And for the attestation engine, the incentive is that those attestations become revenue streams as you give out those certificates. Of course, you have to be trustworthy to make it work, and people have to trust you. But if you are trustworthy and you're good at what you do, you can actually earn a lot of EMTN through the right attestation engine.
Okay. All right. What's your best tip for someone new who just wants to get involved in Peer Mountain? What's your best tip?
Depends how they want to get involved. If they just want to buy the token, they should go to peermountain.com and whitelist. If they're a larger buyer and they're interested in the private sale, they can reach out at privatesale@peermountain.com, and I'd be happy to talk to them. The private sale is currently 100 ETH minimum, and it's a 30% bonus.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So I think we're out of time now anyway. So thank you for your time on the podcast, and hopefully we can have you on the show again and see where Peer Mountain is, hopefully next year when the market conditions maybe change. But yeah, until next time, it's been Connor. Take care.
Thank you, Connor.
Take care.
Take care.